Parachute. Para, originating from ancient Greek, meaning against or beside. In Latin, or from the Italian parare, meaning to protect against. Chute from French, fall. Parachute, against falling. Fall warder, fall protector. Paranormal, the opposite of normal, anything besides the normal. Parasol, against the sun. Paratopic, not a real word, at least not one that can be found in a dictionary, and yet, based on the previous words, we can imagine its meaning. Besides the topic, against the topic, anything but the topic. It's a rare phenomenon to encounter a form of media whose execution is confusing and yet plainly explained by the title itself. The video game Paratopic, published by Serenity Forge on Steam in 2018 and developed by Arbitrary Metric, is the perfect example of that. Movies, video games, comics, books, TV series and mangas whose objective is to tell a story will sometimes summarize or overall skip moments, scenes or parts of a character's life that are irrelevant to the main plot or topic, because even without those moments, the story will still make perfect sense. They are simply unnecessary, and while their presence doesn't necessarily mean they have no connection to the main plot whatsoever, one could do without them in the grand scheme of things and still have a perfectly good story. These moments are undoubtedly the least important part of the plot. In Paratopic, us, the audience, gets the short end of the stick, and what I described above, and only what I described above, is what we get to witness. We don't get to see the main plot, we don't get to witness the important scenes of a seemingly incredibly dark story. We get everything in between, everything that our characters get to experience that isn't related to the topic of the plot, wrapped up in a chilling, dark and liminal experience. Paratopic is an experience that heavily focuses on a narrative, one that we don't get to witness in its entirety. While playing, going through certain scenes, exploring certain locations, the game will sometimes abruptly cut to something else. We might find ourselves driving on a highway and then suddenly shopping for snacks at the gas station. The implication is that in between these two events, something important, something relevant to the main plot has happened, but we didn't get to see it. What we get to see is Paratopic, besides the topic. This is an odd premise for sure. In fact, I will say it's a risky one. Creating a story and then giving the audience only the unimportant parts of it while keeping the important plot points hidden is certainly a bold move in terms of storytelling. But the more surprising part is that it works. Paratopic doesn't give you a complete story. It doesn't even give you the important premise of said story. And yet these unimportant parts, these parts besides the topic, end up being so mysterious, so intriguing, that even long after finishing the game, you'll be left wondering for days or even weeks on end, just what was the actual story. It's the equivalent of being given a large jigsaw puzzle to assemble, but all you get are the border pieces that connect all around to form the background, and only a few central pieces that seemingly don't connect anywhere because everything else is missing. You can try to make a guess as to what the complete jigsaw may look like, but ultimately you're missing most of the central pieces, and without them everything becomes conjecture at best. But enough about me blabbering on the game's premise. I think that unless you'd like to try the game yourself first, which personally I heavily recommend, I'd say that this experience is better understood through a more direct approach. So let's see what the game isn't about. Obviously, spoilers ahead. A black background and a greenish to yellow symbol. This is the first thing that we see in the game's main menu. I was immediately intrigued, just by the symbol alone. What does it mean? Well, I don't know, but looking at it, the first thing that comes to my mind is an electric pole, or antenna of sorts, with what appears to be some occult symbolism around its base. As to its meaning, at least for the time being, your guess is as good as mine.
You have an enemy, friendo.
The game starts. We find ourselves in a tunnel, unable to move, face to face with what appears to be a man in a sort of uniform.
We got a call about you. Undeclared goods, they said.
we've been arrested. Apparently, we were trying to smuggle something across the border. Someone was a narc and decided to snitch on us. We asked for a lawyer. We're pretty full up. Busy night and all, no cameras out here. You think your lawyer's gonna stop me from checking out these tapes? So that's what we were attempting to smuggle. Tapes. We claim innocence, and we advise the man against checking the contents of the tapes, to no avail. The border guard leaves us, possibly handcuffed to the chair as we are unable to move, and proceeds into a nearby room. The game cuts. We are now inside of a cafe. Outside we can see a person's carcass being devoured by a large raven. We're talking to someone, possibly on the phone. The call ends. In front of us we see a gun and a photo camera. We can see other people in the cafe, but their features are darkened out. We can't make out any details. I feel like this scene alone already conveys a lot about the universe where this takes place in. The apartment blocks and the street looks gloomy at best. A dead person is outside being pecked at by birds, and we have a revolver on full display on our table, and yet nobody seems to care. Maybe this is something completely normal around here. Already, we get some pretty dystopic vibes from this entire scene. The game cuts again. We are in the same cafe, but this time we are sitting in another booth. We can see the same people hanging around, indicating that this scene is taking place at the same time as the previous, but now we are taking the perspective of another character. A man is sitting across our table. He seems tired, irritated, strange. He insists that we act professionally and informs us that we will find some tapes in our apartment. We have a key, he says, indicating that he is the representative of a larger organization or group. He scolds us for doing something we shouldn't have, claiming that they knew. We can attempt to lie our way out, but that doesn't work. We are told to cross the border and deliver the goods to the regular places, and whatever we do, we should not watch the tapes. They will know if we do. This is clearly a prequel to the starting sequence, and we are currently playing as the smuggler, one of the 3 playable characters of the game. We cut back to the gun woman. We are still in the diner, but now it appears to be completely empty. Everyone else has left. It's only us now. With the revolver in our hand, we see a few cards left on a nearby table. Horoscope symbols: Taurus, Aries, Scorpio, Aquarius, Libra, accompanied by religious iconography. We make our way towards the diner's staff room, gun in hand. We kick the door down. Cut to title. We are now in a small lobby, and we call for what might possibly be the slowest elevator in existence. At least it gives us time to observe our surroundings. The elevator eventually arrives. We enter inside and we cut to the moment when we leave it. The implication is clear. Something important happened on our elevator ride. This wasn't just a time skip for the sake of convenience. The game made it pretty clear that idly waiting around isn't something that it's afraid to make us experience, judging by the amount of time we spent waiting for the elevator. Something definitely happened on our way up, but we don't know what. All we know is that it was important. We are now into the hallway of an apartment block. Everything looks old, dirty, broken. The existence of a communal bathroom suggests that each and every one of these apartments are probably barely larger than a coffin. Single room, most definitely. This is a place of misery, of sadness. There's a police stripe blocking the way to one end of the hallway. In the other end, it's our apartment. We see our neighbor, a woman, smoking a cigarette. She informs us that some man came earlier by our apartment and dropped something off for us. This makes it clear that we are playing as the smuggler once again. A sequel after the events of the diner. After all, we were told someone will drop by to leave us some tapes. Everything in this place looks horrible, depressing. We see our apartment, it's incredibly small. No windows, barely any furniture. We don't even have a real bed, just a dirty mattress laying down on the floor. On top of the mattress, we see a black box. It bears a logo that looks oddly similar to the one in the main menu. This must be what the ones that came here left for us. We open the box, and surely it's full of tapes. The scene cuts. We are now talking to our neighbor. She made her way inside of our apartment and is now questioning us in regard to the contents of the box. She knows what it is. "Give us a tape," she says. We refuse. "You've always been good to me before. Come on, I'm starving." We really shouldn't. She threatens us. Blatant blackmail. She will tell others about the man that came to drop off the tapes unless we share. We suggest for her to use one of the tapes from last time, but she claims it's already been used up, and now it's nothing but static. We agree. Just one tape, in exchange for her silence. After all, the man at the diner did tell us that we would find a few that we were allowed to give away. Bribery. She demands the juicy one. We refuse, and give her another one. The scene cuts once more. We leave our apartment and see that our neighbor left her door open. We see her watching the tape. We catch a small glimpse into the true nature of what these tapes are capable of. We are now in our car, alone, driving on the highway. The box of tapes is placed down on the passenger seat. Everything feels very monotonous. At least there's the radio to keep us company. Not that we can understand anything from it, but it's probably better than the eerie silence following us. The city is seemingly abandoned. Apartment blocks stretching for miles, reaching up into the sky, and their interiors? Probably just as miserable as our own. There seems to be an overpopulation problem to warrant such living conditions, and yet we see no one around. Perhaps there's no reason to go out anymore. We turn to our passenger seat. The box of tapes, it's no longer there. Just an empty seat now. Stopping the car isn't even an option. We can slow down, sure, but we must keep going anyway. A gun suddenly materializes on the seat. It's the same gun from before. Are we currently playing as all three characters of the game simultaneously? Did all three characters leave around the same hour and drove along the same highway? In the same car? Or perhaps the same model of car? When I said at the start of the video that this game will deliver a liminal experience, I didn't mean it in the now bastardized definition of the word. Nowadays when you say liminal or when you hear the word, your mind wanders off to liminal spaces, the backrooms, the pool rooms, empty spaces devoid of life that awaken an odd sense of familiarity. Paratopic isn't liminal in that sense. There is no infinite, endless labyrinth of similarly decorated rooms, no buildings that extend in impossible shapes or that awaken a dreadful yet familiar feeling in you. Liminality had a different meaning at first. similar to the one associated to liminal spaces and fitting within the context of the game. The idea of liminal or liminality refers to a state of transition. In simple terms, you can think about the states of before and after. In between those two states, it's what you will call liminality, which is why the word was also associated with the backrooms or liminal spaces, since most of these pictures usually depict hallways, streets, corridors. Those are liminal spaces because they don't have a specific purpose other than serving as a space of transition between two other rooms. And this is what Paratopic is, a liminal experience between two states of being, the before, the after. The point of view of three separate characters on their way towards something. What happens in Paratopic, what we see and experience, is simply the transition from one state of being, from one location to another, except this is all we are allowed to see. We don't get to see what made us depart on this journey, and we don't get to see where it ultimately takes us. And if we do, well, then it means that it wasn't important to the story. It was a transition. After an almost uncomfortably long car drive through the city, we cut to the interior of a gas station. It's night and we are getting snacks. A box of cereal with no milk to accompany it. We make small talk with the man at the register. We get the location of a burger joint close to us, and then the discussion shifts to the book the teller is reading. A book written by some guy named Eric about how aliens are better than us. The book argues that the aliens, despite being able to travel between planets, they still haven't conquered us, meaning that in a moral sense, they must be better than humans. Of course, this could also simply prove that aliens don't exist, but the man at the register claims that they do exist, that he's seen them, providing practically no proof for his claims. Source? Huh, I made it up for dramatic effect. The teller asks us whether our friend is still out the gas station, refueling. This question takes us by surprise. We came here alone, and looking out the window we can't see anybody else. The teller asks us where we are headed. We can choose not to answer, or to lie. After all, our business is none of his. He says we should check the electric rocks, claiming that they are a popular tourist attraction, a place where shamans manage to contact otherworldly beings, the same ones from his book. We cut again. This time we are outside of our car, parked along the road. It's dark outside. We see a box similar to the one that had tapes in it, except this one lacks the logo from before, and it's in the trunk, indicating that we are now playing as the third character, the ornithologist. We briefly experienced part of the car drive as the ornithologist before, since what we were carrying wasn't in our passenger seat, it was in the trunk. Opening the box revealed the photo camera. It's sunny day, and we are at the edge of a forest. We are looking to snap a picture of a very rare bird. If we try to go anywhere but in the forest, the game's visuals begin glitching out, and we are brought back to our car. Only one place to go. We make our way into the forest. The game cuts again. We find ourselves deeper inside the forest now. The scenery is pretty and calm. We find a small river and a seemingly abandoned cabin in the middle of the woods. The inside of the cabin is filled with hay bales, a singular mattress, and a couple of open cans of food. But the interesting part is a small staircase leading to a locked iron door. The door won't budge, no matter how many times we try to open it, but attempting to leave the cabin will cause a metallic sound to play. Returning to the door, we find out it's now fully opened. Whatever or whoever kept it locked has now opened it up for us. We continue down a spiraling staircase, deep into a concrete tunnel, and find ourselves in a large bunker-like structure. There isn't much to see around here, and the little we see is confusing at best. A round machine that resembles a sort of satellite, and a large hole into the ground. Resetting the electric panel turns on the various screens in the room, and we see the same logo from the box of tapes, before a man shows up on the various screens, talking to us. Returning to the surface, we continue along the path in the forest. We see some old metal containers bearing the same logo once again. We snap a few pictures of the various birds around, while we walk deeper into the forest. A dome-like structure is visible on the other end of a massive valley, along with what appears to be another odd structure in the distance. The atmosphere is now more eerie and mysterious. We cut back to the car ride. We are now the smuggler. It's dusk. We are no longer driving inside of the city, judging by the more visible sky, no longer obstructed by the massive apartment blocks we saw previously. It'd be an educated guess to say we are now in the outskirts. We are leaving the city, little by little. There is still no one around. Everything seems deserted, abandoned. Another almost uncomfortably long car ride. It's completely dark outside now. We are out of the city. The highway is filled with street lamps that don't seem to work. The music has become more tense. The game cuts back to the ornithologist. We apparently followed down the path from before. Something happened along the way. We now find ourselves into an abandoned depot of sorts. Shipping containers bearing the same logo from before can be seen everywhere, and further down the way, a fully functional CCTV camera. The light is blinking. The camera follows our movements. Someone's watching us. We continue down an old abandoned train track. More shipping containers, more mysterious brutalist concrete structures in the distance. Nothing has happened yet. Not that we've seen it happen at least. But the environment, the cameras, the anxiety-inducing music, everything about this place makes it abundantly clear that we shouldn't be here. But we cannot leave either, so the only option left is to keep going forward. Eventually we come across someone, or better said, something. In the distance we see a black humanoid figure staring at us. Its limbs are uncomfortably long, and the low graphics of the game make it hard to tell whether the figure is moving towards us, standing still, or even alive. Using our camera to zoom in to catch more details of the creature's appearance is pointless. It clearly has the power, willingly or unwillingly, to disrupt electronic equipment. What happens next is ambiguous and unclear in the context of this game. We're back in the car. The music is just as tense as before. The street lamps aren't on yet either, and we can't make out any details of the few buildings we drive by now. It's too dark, and we can only rely on the radio to take off the edge of the horrors we just witnessed from the ornithologist's perspective. Another almost uncomfortably long car ride. While playing this game, particularly these car driving sections, I was unsure how to feel about them. On one hand, they were a bit too long than they should be, and since practically nothing at all happened in them, there wasn't much to do other than observe the repetitive slideshow of the outside environment presented before us. On the other hand, in a way, I found myself a bit appreciative of them. Sure, they basically felt like extremely stretched out interactive loading screens, but I think that a quality of these long car ride scenes is that they gave me time to think. In none of those scenes I was presented with any new information, I wasn't being exposed to conversations with characters, and other than the initial surprise of realizing that the car ride takes place in the point of view of all the three characters at once, there wasn't much else to figure out about them, which gave me time to think. It gave me time to question. Just what is that I saw before? What was that dark figure in the woods? What was up with that weird bunker basement? Why was that logo everywhere in that area? Who was looking at me through the cameras? And just what was the deal with those tapes? Of course, none of these questions will find their answers. Definitely not during the car ride, but it did give me time to think about them nonetheless, to come up with my own theories, or to wonder about just how little I truly knew about this game's story, despite being already exposed to so much of it. We find ourselves once again in the gas station. This time, we see our car outside. It's the same green pickup truck, and we can see someone standing right next to it. The same dark, mysterious figure from the woods. Our conversation with the cashier is different this time. We're obviously no longer in the role of the smuggler. The conversation hints at the fact that we've never been around this area, while the smuggler was somewhat familiar with it. After all, this gas station is close to the border, and his last run was certainly not his first. We inquire about local tourist attractions, and the game suddenly cuts again. We are in the back of the diner. We just shot a man. And the room seems filled to the brim with crates and tapes, the same ones the smuggler has been taking across the border. This appears to be a sort of base of operations. Attempting to watch one of the tapes rewinds us back to the precise moment of the man's death. A second tape rewinds us once more. The third tape cuts us off. We're now back at the beginning. The smuggler, caught by the border police. The man who was interrogating us at the start of the game watched one of the tapes, and has now paid the price for it. We are now in the woods, the same abandoned depot from last time, but now we are playing as the assassin. We have a gun. Exploring around causes the game to cut us off forward, frequently. Something important keeps happening in this part of the game, something we are not meant to see. Proceeding down the storage depot, we find the same symbol from the menu, the photo camera, and the body of the ornithologist, twisting around a concrete pole, still moving, but flayed and missing its head and skin. We call the police, and after informing them of what we just found...
wet my one out of my baby. Walk with you up with me. Now. Now. Now.
The game ends. Just like this. Unceremoniously, unsatisfyingly, unresolved. We never get a straight answer to our story. We never get to see what the black creature was, what the deal with the tapes is, or what happened in the end to the smuggler or the assassin. The only fate that is resolved, quote unquote, is perhaps the one of the ornithologist, where her story simply revolved around the idea that she went into the woods in order to snap a picture of a rare bird, only to find herself at the mercy of a creature who flayed and skinned her, turning her into a macabre obelisk of flesh, still writhing and pulsating around a concrete pole. It's a dark ending, which still leaves many questions unanswered, but I think that, in a way, Paratopic nailed this concept. Personally, I truly believe that no matter the explanation that we could have possibly gotten in regard to what the tapes were, or what the black creature was, I think the provided explanation could have never matched the horror of what our own brains could conjure, the horror of the gaps that our mind attempts to fill, because without a canonic explanation to the story, we are left with something more terrifying than any monster or anomalous tape could have provided. The unknown and the fear of it. Who was looking at us through the camera before? We don't know. It could have been the black creature itself, it could have been another human, or it could have been nobody at all. Upon finishing the game, you might feel a little bit disappointed. I know I personally was. But the more time passed, the more I kept thinking about it. I found myself lying in bed, awake at 3 AM, thinking about what Paratopic could have meant. But the one thing that stuck with me was the horror of the implication. Think about it. Since Paratopic shows us the unimportant parts of the story, the ones that even without the story could still technically work, then there is a lot in terms of terrifying implications. What happened during that elevator ride? What could have happened during that one goddamn elevator ride that was more important and related to the main topic than a woman quite literally transforming into a monstrous flower from watching a VHS tape? What sort of terrible things would our three characters have discovered during this story to make the discovery of the secret underground bunker become an unimportant detail? Think about the parts that we did not skip. Think about how we saw a man being devoured by ravens outside of the cafe, how the ornithologist got attacked by a monstrous being in the forest, how the woman transformed into a flower, and how the border guard became a TV monster. Think about every horrific detail and aspect of this game that you have witnessed, and now let all of these moments simmer into the boiling pot of the implication that is the only reason that we got to witness these things is because they were unimportant. They were irrelevant to the true story that was being told, and that such sites within the universe of Paratopic might simply be considered mundane. The true horror of Paratopic isn't about what you see and what you experience, it's about what you don't, because it implies that despite everything, there is something far darker and sinister hidden underneath all that, and we will never know, because we were not meant to. Also, the soundtrack of the game? Yeah, the soundtrack slaps pretty goddamn hard, as it will transition you from a dream state of surreal calm to the heart-pumping high-octane action to what could be described only as pure, unfiltered electronic anxiety. I think that what Paratopic really manages to nail down by combining essentially everything I've talked about so far, its strongest point is definitely the atmosphere, the liminal vibe that it conveys, and the feeling of isolation that is so oppressive during certain scenes is also masterfully played out. The oppressive size of the city during the driving scenes, and how you are pretty much alone on that road. The feeling of being watched while in the woods, as you notice one of the cameras not so subtly following your movements. The uncomfortably long wait for the elevator in the lobby. All of these scenes feel extremely liminal and distressing to a certain degree because, since nothing happens in them, they give you time to think about what just happened previously and what might happen next. So what's more to say about Paratopic? Perhaps a theory, a conjecture about what I personally think the real story is, about what truly is going on in the game and how the little hints that we see actually reveal what is happening. But I'm not going to do that, because it would be against the point of the game, because as long as an explanation isn't offered, and we stick only with the side details, with the ambiguous and unimportant parts and only let our minds imagine what the true answer could be without ever reaching an actual confirmation, that process right there, that's Paratopic. I would like to thank everyone for watching this video until the end. As always, I would like to thank this channel's members for their continued support. You guys are great, and if you would like to join them, you can do so through the join button down below. I would also want to ask you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to hit 100k subscribers. I know it's not going to happen anytime soon, but each subscribe counts for that matter, so help me reach this goal and I will be eternally grateful. At the same time, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this video. I highly enjoy reading comments under my videos, so just let me know anything you'd want me to know. As always, I wish you a good night and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.